Right on. Okay, so Mr. Justin Riemer,
Hi.
Western Economic Diversification Officer. Oh, I already bugged that.
No,
Buggered
that's
that
all
up.
right.
Western Economic
Assistant Deputy Minister
Assistant Deputy Minister of the Western Economic Diversification
Canada.
Canada.
That's
WD.
right. WD.
Good stuff.
That's
right on.
right. Yes.
Can you give me a little bit of a history of what what that role is, and kind of tell us what you do?
Sure. So Western Diversification is the regionally based, locally based economic development department for the federal government. We're headquartered here in Alberta. I have counterparts in BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba.
Gotcha.
And we're responsible for delivering economic development programs for the federal government right here in Alberta to support Western economic diversification.
And what kind of programs are we talking about?
So we have a couple of different programs and many special purpose programs in times of economic crisis. We'll deliver supports. We delivered supports through the floods and the fire episodes we've had in Alberta. But on a regularized basis, what we do is provide no interest loans to companies that are looking to scale up. Typically in the tech industry, we have a lot of supports in Canada for startups, not so much for scale-ups, and we're really trying to see more leveraged support for those companies that are looking to grow, go from 10 to 100 employees, for instance. And so we've started a program called Business Scale-Up and Productivity, and companies apply to that, and we'll do our due diligence and award no interest loan financing to a number of those companies. They often use that financing then to scale up and seek other leveraged financing from commercial institutions, for instance. So that's a program that's been working very well. But we also have a program where we fund not-for-profit entities that are supporting businesses. So innovation entities, you might have heard of business accelerators and incubators, for instance. We'll be funders in a number of those types of programs. We also fund Indigenous economic development groups and tourism programs we have as well, and a variety of things around community economic development and community revitalization is an area that we're going to be getting more into post-COVID.
Gotcha. And, you kind of brought it up there post-COVID. I mean, we're going through such a crazy time right now. Obviously, the economy is taking a massive hit.
Yes.
What kind of challenges are you guys running into right now that you're kind of having to, let's say, innovate, because that's your specialty, to kind of overcome some of these things? What are some of the new things that are starting to come up that you have to develop or adapt to get your job done? Yeah,
so our job became very exciting as of last March 2020. We were all sent home like many. And learning to adapt in a virtual world. We actually made that adjustment very quickly. And we were asked by the government to deliver what we call the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, which was a liquidity loan program for small and medium-sized businesses. So we all know many small businesses had to shut down or curtail their operations. We were one of the groups that provided a lot of the backstop loans to companies to ensure their survival and provide necessary liquidity to keep them operational. So we had to design a program very quickly. Alberta was one of the highest utilizers, is one of the highest utilizers of those loan programs, and that was due not only to COVID, but because of the energy situation and the recession we were in pre-COVID as well. And that's been a big part of what we've been doing over the past little while, is generating a variety of small business loans, right from $40,000 up to $1 million in various instances. And that's had our organization have to adapt very quickly to deliver that kind of a program.
Well, it's no secret that Alberta's economy is really strongly rooted in entrepreneurship and small businesses, right? So having, an organization like yours, a department like yours within the government that can assist those people is super vital. And like you said before, like we had taken such a kick. We've been taking such a kick when it comes to our energy sector that, a lot of those people are pivoting from energy because they can't find the jobs in there. So they're pivoting to newer jobs, different aspects that they've never maybe explored before. What are some, now you talk about diversification. Let's just jump right into that, because I mean, diversification is where we're going. If we leave the energy sector, we're looking at what else is there. Now there's diversification within energy,
Yes,
obviously.
yes.
But then there's so much other. So what are some of the diversifications? I mean, I say this because your history, you've roots in health services.
Yes.
And we know that Alberta has a really strong health services foundation as well.
Yes.
And lots of potential growth there.
Yes.
So when we talk about diversification, what are some of the things that you see areas of opportunity for Albertans and small businesses?
Yeah. Thanks, Bryce. It's a lot to unpack there. So I've been doing economic development in this province for 25 years and had the privilege of doing that both with the provincial government and the federal government, and seen a lot of ebbs and flows and a lot of highs in this province. In fact, we've had a lot of growth that many other jurisdictions would be envious of over that period of time. And consider ourselves very fortunate. But we've had a real tough COVID over the past year, 2 years in particular, and we're starting to climb out of that hill. There are a number of opportunities, and as you mentioned, we're seeing transitions in the energy sector. Energy, oil and gas is still going to be a foundation for many years to come in this province, but we're seeing a shift in diversification even within that sector now. One of the things we've been working on with the Alberta Industrial Heartland, the provincial government, and industry and academic players is creating a hydrogen hub in Canada, one of Canada's first hydrogen hubs. So we make a tremendous amount of hydrogen already in the Northeast Edmonton metro area, with all the refineries and petrochemical facilities being in development there currently. And there's a potential to create blue hydrogen, which is hydrogen created with carbon capture utilization. And this is becoming a real area of interest, not only for domestic use, say in bus fleets and semi trucks, for instance, but for potentially export. And it's an indication that we're moving our eye on the ball to adapt to changing circumstances and finding new ways to leverage not only our riches in hydrocarbons, but the expertise we have in our talent, engineering and petroleum engineering and so forth. So that's a very exciting potential. So we just made a recent announcement around that hydrogen hub with the municipal, provincial, and federal governments a couple of weeks ago. And I think we'll get a bit of first mover advantage. And we have some real core assets to build off there. But beyond just the petroleum industry, there's a variety of different exciting developments going on in Alberta. You talked about health. I'm very passionate about health innovation, and we have some tremendous intellectual property being developed out of our universities. Lots of expertise in areas like diagnostics and using our expertise in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we're seeing a number of small companies pop up in that area, medical devices. And we actually have some bigger medical device players here that most people aren't aware of. For instance, Primed has been operating out of Edmonton for years. They make surgical masks. Before, surgical masks were incredibly popular across the globe. So they're a very substantial company and have a large market share export around the world. I was just at an expansion of a facility that's just breaking ground called Nanospeed, where they do a variety of tests such as vitamin D and others, and they're exporting to the European Union and are now into the U.S. So there's a lot of opportunities in that health side, but what we've seen, particularly over the past couple years, and particularly accelerated with COVID, is the explosion in the tech industry in this province, and some really exciting developments there. So we broke a record this past year in Alberta for venture capital raises. I think it increased over 100% over 2019 in terms of the amount of venture capital raised, particularly by our tech industry in this province. And that's something we've always been challenged with in Alberta, is acquiring venture capital. Yeah. And now with the explosion in tech and then the interest in tech and digital, it's easier to raise funds. But we have some phenomenal technology firms in things like financial tech, business support technology, and a number of those firms aren't just simple startups. They're beginning to scale up. I think of firms in Calgary right now, SciMed and Adabotics, who are becoming very, very large. We have Jobber here in Edmonton as well, and seeing phenomenal growth. And Western Diversification has been an investor in some of these companies. And what we're trying to do is retain those companies here in Alberta. So one of our biggest challenges is we create great companies in this province, but they often get pulled off into the States because that's where the venture capital typically is. And if a venture capitalist wants to invest in a small company, they'll often say, well, we need you headquartered down here in the US. So what we need to do is find ways to retain the talent and retain the IP and retain those companies and that economic growth here. So back to that program where we invest in companies through our no interest loans, we've had a number of companies tell us that funding, that investment keeps them here in Alberta because they can tell the other venture capitalists that invest in them, well, we also have investments from the Government of Canada, and so we feel we are obligated or need to stay here in the province. You got that tie. So that's working, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's super great to hear because that's a common theme with a lot of the guests that we have on this show is about retaining the talent, retaining the IP, making sure that when that company breaks into the big leagues, that is staying here. It's that the talent's staying here, the money is staying here, so on and so forth. In your position, I mean, have you seen a big change, or has there been any change with that venture capital coming from within Canada outside of government? I mean, down in the States, you've always got companies investing in companies and so on and so forth. What do we need to change, or is that changing to becoming more common here where companies are investing in companies or larger corporations instead of that foreign investment coming in? How, is that starting to change?
It is. It is, and thankfully so. And along all the areas of the investment continuum. So to understand early stage investment, there is what we call angel investment, angel capital, and that's that very, very early seed stage beyond the friends and family. Then you get into the venture capital, typically over $500,000, and then into different series rounds of investments from different ranges of capital sources. But both on the angel side and on the venture side, we're seeing increases in Canadian-led and Alberta owned investments. Part of the challenge with the angel investment is we have a number of high net worth individuals who are very comfortable in the energy sector, but aren't comfortable in the tech or health sector or other sectors, and so aren't sure about making those investments. And one of the things the investment community has been doing is doing more angel investor training and increasing the awareness of the opportunities in those different sectors, making those high net worth individuals more comfortable in investing in that early angel stage. But the governments have helped create some of these fund of funds. The Alberta Enterprise Corporation, for instance, from the provincial government, has created a number of fund and funds where they'll match funding from a private sector source to get venture capital offices and investors located here in the province or investing here in the province. And that's worked in increasing sort of the venture capital pull right here. Perfect. And we are actually seeing also some of the major multinationals, for instance, the Suncors of the other worlds, also getting into that venture capital stage and to support technology developments in their sector and to develop clean technology. And so that's an interesting phenomenon as well, where you're seeing some of the majors reinvesting into early stage ventures to support developments and enhancements in their sector.
Yeah, the cultural shift is slowly but surely happening, especially in that energy sector where, like we're starting to push more towards carbon neutral and you see that happening all over the world with electric cars and just technology shifts and changes, but that cultural shift is changing. What about awareness? You talked about it before about how people are, unaware of a lot of these cool and great things that are happening in Alberta. Where is your role when it comes to building awareness to the common community, just the average Joe Schmo that's looking to just unaware of these great opportunities? Where is your role in that?
It's a great question. So one of the hardest things to do in economic development is get your story out, is get the good news out, and appreciate the work Alberta Impact does in order to do that, Bryce. But we spend a fair amount of our job in terms of promoting and communicating. So being present or speaking at conferences, for instance. We're extensively using social media now to get things out, get the story out. We've created short videos. We have a number of short videos that we post online about the companies that we've invested in and their story, and where they're seeing growth and development. But it takes a village to create that understanding. So we spend a lot of time working with the provincial government, with the municipal government, economic development entities, other economic development players to be more aligned and make sure we're sharing within our economic development family what's going on, what are the opportunities, where are the gaps, and how do we collectively promote this. I would say people in different sectors, steeped in different sectors are more aware of what's going on in their areas, but what's really a challenge is getting these exciting success stories out to the general public, and helping them understand that there really is a number and a broad range of opportunities here in the province.
Fantastic. The other area that we've talked about before is travel and tourism, and just how that's growing. The film and television industry has exploded here recently. We've got some great stuff happening in Calgary to attract, more of that kind of industry. How is that kind of playing into your guys' plan for the future here in Alberta, Western Canada? Yeah,
great question. Tourism is obviously massively been devastated by the pandemic and is undergoing all sorts of adaptations and shifts. Alberta has so much to build on in terms of tourism assets, not only our Rocky Mountains and the great cultural festivals and other activities we have in our urban environments, but moving into Drumheller into the north with the Northern Lights. People are coming from around the world, at least pre-pandemic, to come see the Northern Lights, and Indigenous tourism is becoming a growing area of focus as well. So there's a number of things that we're doing in partners such as Travel Alberta and the Travel Industry Association of Alberta to help our tourism companies adapt. First, manage the hemorrhaging, the bleeding that was taking on because of the pandemic with some of these relief loans, for instance. But now looking at ways in which we can support them in the training and adaptation with health and safety protocols, for instance, adapting to changed circumstances on the ground. And I think there will be a big focus in the recovery around marketing and bringing people back once borders open and so forth. So there's a lot of attention being developed on the strategy and planning in that area. We're very happy to see the explosion of growth in television and movies. Our department itself doesn't involve itself too much in that area, but we're very grateful to see that taking place as well. Absolutely. Well, it's good to hear that you guys are being, and I mean, it's such a necessary thing, but proactive in, the hope, once vaccines come out and COVID hopefully decides to go away, or we can beat this, right? The proactive approach that the government is taking, your division specifically, on just trying to build everything so when things can open up, we're ready, as opposed to being reactive and trying to catch up. We were kind of being reactive with COVID because well, who would have saw that coming, right? And now we're being proactive as, okay, when this finally lifts, we're off to the races here. Absolutely.
So that's fantastic. Justin, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today and sharing your story about your division and what your guys' part is and what you've been doing to help businesses and again, Western economic diversification. So it's super great to hear. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with everything else that you're doing.
Thank you, Bryce. Really appreciate the opportunity today.
You got it. Thank you.
All right.